Welcome back to another explainer, everyone. Today, we are diving into the life, the work, and the absolute genius of ancient India's greatest literary mind. We're talking about a poet and playwright whose grip on language and human emotion is so profound, it hasn't just survived for millennia, it's literally shaped writers all over the globe.
So, who exactly is the Shakespeare of India? Now, I know that is a massive title, right? To be compared to Shakespeare implies you've got unmatched mastery of drama, a deep understanding of human psychology, and a cultural legacy that just won't quit. And while the exact historical facts of his life are honestly a bit of an enigma, the words he left behind paint a crystal clear picture of a highly sophisticated civilization. We are, of course, talking about Kalidasa.
To truly get a feel for this literary giant, we've broken down this explainer into 5 quick parts. We'll start with the man in the myth, look at his 7 timeless masterpieces, explore nature as a character, dive into love, duty, and dharma, and finally, wrap up with exactly why he's earned that title of the Shakespeare of India. All right, part 1, the man and the myth, separating legend from history. Before we get into his poetry, we really have to look at the man himself. His name, Kalidasa, actually translates to servant of goddess Kali. Now, because we lack a contemporary factual biography of him, popular culture kind of just filled in the blanks with some pretty incredible legends. The most famous story claims Kalidasa actually started out as an uneducated, pretty simple-minded guy. Story goes he was tricked into marrying a highly educated princess who, the second she realized he was illiterate, completely humiliated him. Heartbroken, he prays to goddess Kali, and boom, she miraculously blesses him with divine wisdom, instantly transforming him into a master scholar and poet. It's a wonderful cultural story, right? It perfectly symbolizes transformation through humility. But the historical reality, which is obvious when you read his flawlessly complex Sanskrit writing, tells us he was almost certainly a highly educated, sophisticated scholar right from the get-go.
And that brings up a really fun historical puzzle. Exactly when did this guy live? Well, some ancient traditions put him way back in the 1st century BCE at the court of the legendary king Vikramaditya. Others argue for the 6th century CE under King Yashodharman. But if you talk to modern scholars today, they'll tell you the concrete evidence, especially the incredibly detailed societal descriptions in his work, point squarely to the 4th or 5th century CE. This places him right in the middle of the glorious Gupta period, likely under Chandragupta II. We're talking about an absolute golden age of science, art, and philosophy in classical India, and Kalidasa was its defining voice.
Moving on to part 2, 7 timeless masterpieces, the surviving works. Over the centuries, a lot of writers tried to ride his coattails by falsely attributing their own work to him. But today, scholars agree on a solid core canon of 7 surviving texts. Now, don't let the Sanskrit titles intimidate you. We can break this down super easily into 3 distinct types of writing. First up, the plays. He gave us 3, Abhijnanashakuntalam, Malavika Agnimitram, and Vikramorvashyam, which mostly deal with romance, separation, and all the drama of court life. Then he went big with 2 massive epic poems, Raghuvamsha, all about a legendary dynasty of kings, and Kumarasambhava, exploring the divine love of the gods Shiva and Parvati. And finally, he wrote 2 incredibly beautiful lyric poems, Samhara, which details the changing seasons, and Meghaduta. Actually, speaking of Meghaduta, let's zoom in on that one for a second. It translates to the cloud messenger. And honestly, you can think of it as the ultimate ancient long-distance relationship story. It follows a mystical being, a yaksha, who is exiled and separated from his beloved wife. He is absolutely desperate. So he sees a monsoon cloud passing by and literally begs this cloud to act as his messenger and carry his words across the entire Indian subcontinent to her. It is such a wonderfully relatable, deeply emotional story, and it perfectly showcases how Kalidasa tied our raw human feelings to the natural world. Which leads us perfectly into part 3, nature as a character, mirrors for human emotion. Here's the thing about Kalidasa's writing. The environment is never, ever just a passive backdrop. The crucial point is that he made the landscape an active participant in his stories. For his characters, whatever emotional state they're in actively changes how they perceive the world around them. Clouds aren't just weather up in the sky, they symbolize hope, communication, and the ache of separation. Rivers aren't just flowing water, they represent life, movement, and emotional continuity. Even the changing seasons are actively mirroring human love, loneliness, desire, and renewal. He's teaching us that we shouldn't treat nature like it's something separate from human life. We are deeply emotionally wired to it. Let's dig a little deeper with Part 4, Love, Duty, and Dharma, Philosophy and Poetry.
You see, Kalidasa wasn't just stringing together pretty words. He was embedding profound life lessons and philosophy right into his poetry. One of the biggest themes he tackles is viraha, which is that intense, deep pain of being separated from a loved one. If you look at his characters, they almost always have to suffer through a period of intense waiting and distance. Why? Well, Kalidasa believed that absence is what makes you emotionally mature. Separation strips away superficial attraction and reveals the true depth, loyalty, and meaning of genuine love. The most important things in life require immense patience. But as we know, love often collides head-on with another massive concept, dharma. Dharma roughly translates to righteous conduct, and it's all about balancing what you personally want with your moral and social responsibilities. Kalidasa's heroes, kings, and gods are constantly wrestling with this. They have these intense, burning personal desires, but Kalidasa teaches that a meaningful life requires us not to let those desires completely override our duties to our family, to society, and to the greater good. And this brilliantly sets up his blueprint for ideal leadership, which he outlines in epics like Raghuvamsha. For Kalidasa, a true leader has to protect the people, uphold justice, practice deep self-control, and crucially, put duty above personal pleasure. In his eyes, power and wealth aren't privileges meant for personal enjoyment. Absolutely not. They are immense responsibilities meant to be used purely for the welfare of others. And finally, let's bring it home with Part 5, The Shakespeare of India, A Global Legacy. Kalidasa didn't just shape Indian literature. He became the master of classical Sanskrit aesthetics, particularly with his legendary use of upama, or the simile. But his genius was way too big to be contained to India. When his most famous play, Abhijnanashakuntalam, or The Recognition of Shakuntala, was first translated into European languages in the late 18th century, it sent absolute shockwaves through the Western literary world. The legendary German writer Goethe was so enraptured by the play that he basically said, hey, if you want to understand heaven and earth combined into one single name, just say Shakuntala. That is the kind of international, heavyweight legacy we're talking about here. So what's the big takeaway for us today? If we had to distill the entire essence of Kalidasa's teachings into one simple thought, it'd be this: live with balance, appreciate nature, and fulfill your responsibilities. He's urging us across the centuries to cultivate our knowledge, master our impulses, stay patient through the hard times, and use our talents to enrich society. So as you go about your day today, I want you to ask yourself, are you letting your fleeting impulses rule you? Or are you striving for the kind of balance, duty, and deep appreciation for the world that Kalidasa championed over 1,500 years ago? Give it some thought. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer today, and keep exploring.